Alright, we're back with more TwoSun action, and I got a really weird one today. This is a TS252. It's a Wong design. Fairly new, as you can see by it being a button lock here. And it looks fairly simple going on the outside. We have a very large kind of a swelled beak, or bulbous kind of end to it. Yeah, really interesting pocket clip going on there. It is titanium. But in this particular case, I think it's probably mostly ended up being bent rather than, a full milled pocket clip, which they've done on a few. Nothing really particularly wrong going on there. We got an external blade stop pin. I mean, external from the blade itself, so it goes through the titanium there. All right, enough with that. Let's go ahead and open it up. And we can see that, yeah, this is very, very much a straight back knife. Ain't no sense or semblance of any dropping that tip down closer to you. This thing does have quite the bit of a finger choil on it, though. And that drastically reduces the actual effective length of the knife itself. So you can grab it way, way up here because it does have that super, super large finger choil. And that'll give you a heck of a lot of, power to be able to push through something. But still, at that, we will end up having, let's see, how about if I go to inches, because that makes the most sense to me. And yeah, we got basically right around 3 inches of usable blade length on there. Give or take, obviously. But a 3-inch blade inside a handle that's quite this large is kind of interesting. This thing will do a lot of fantastic things when it comes to having a lot of control and power, especially a lot of wood carving and things like that. Really does a lot of good stuff with that. As with most recent TwoSuns, it is D2. And we can see this thing's got a factory stone wash on it. Super, super nice. These aren't bespoke thumb studs, but they do work quite well. On this one in particular, I don't think they stick out too far. They do just a little bit to be able to give you that purchase because there's no dip down in the titanium there. And yeah, this thing has quite the bit of a feeling of a detent going on there. I mean, obviously it's a button lock, so a detent isn't quite the right word, but resistance before the blade is free swinging to open up. So yeah, really, really works out well. You don't need to put much pressure behind it for it to release and fling this thing open. So that's pretty fantastic. This thing, yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. I don't necessarily know exactly what I got sidetracked with, but the titanium on here, fairly darkened compared to what you end up seeing on a lot of other titanium on there. And in this particular case, I think it's probably coated in something. And then it does have a little bit of a sheen finish, as we can see going on here. Going on like it was slightly tumbled after the fact or something like that. I don't think this was just acid etched or something like that. It doesn't quite feel like it, or any of that. So I suppose I should mention that it's a little bit more darker gray than you would get out of a lot of other titanium. Some people might say like gunmetal, but that still looks way too bright to be basically any kind of firearm that I'm familiar with. Unless it's, I don't know, Cerakoted or something like that after the fact. But okay, so there we go. Fairly thick blade stock on this guy, 3.8 millimeters. That's TwoSun's kind of a go-to for most of their models, unless a particular designer really, really stresses that they want something less. That seems to be what they end up going for. Hefty fella here. It's 5.75 ounces or 163 grams. It's a lot. We do have a hefty amount of weight relieving going on the inside, which we'll see a little bit better when we actually get to some disassembly and all that stuff later on. But still, regardless of all that, these are very, very thick, giant slabs of titanium for the handle scales on there. So, yes, they are quite heavy. And there we go. From basically the back point out to here, we got 3.33 inches or 84.6 millimeters. But of course, as I mentioned earlier, we do have essentially like 3 inches or so of effective blade length on here. So a little bit different out there. And yeah, as I said, with the thick handle scales, we got 0.63 inches thick, fairly thick for a standard kind of a EDC pocket knife there. It's 16.1 millimeters, so rather thick. The button lock on this, outside of the detent, really, really well done. Absolutely no lock rock or any kind of a semblance that something would become loose. And since we're not dealing with thin little liners or anything like this, I've had absolutely no problems with the button lock thinking about binding up from having warped tolerances over different weathers and all that sort of good stuff there. Yeah, you can reverse flick it. It's not necessarily my favorite way to deploy it. And of course, you can also slow roll that open. But I mean, thumb studs, to me, that means a flick. And that feels just super, super satisfying with it. So let's see, what else should I talk about? We got their standard kind of whole pivot assembly going on there. And very, very simple construction going on here. We got a hidden lanyard piece back there. We got that single Chicago screw, as we can see just on the inside there. That goes through that back spacer and then ends up screwing the clip on. And then we have one more pin going in the back here. And that's basically, excuse me, that's basically it besides the little pivot there. So very, very simple construction, yet still feels absolutely ridiculously robust. If you needed to use this as an impact tool, yeah, depending on the manufacturer and how tactical they are, they might call that a persuader or something like that. Especially if they have like a glass breaker end or some other kind of sharp sort of thing going on there. But yeah, it's just a pretty interesting knife. I would say for standard urban EDC kind of applications, seems a little strange that you're losing so much blade out there. So, like I said, I think this thing is much more useful for very, very precise things, and especially like a lot of wood carving and stuff like that, where you'll need a lot of power to muscle through a cut. Which does kind of detract a little bit from some EDC tasks, I think, which makes it maybe not quite as super practical for everybody. But still a very, very interesting and fairly purpose-built, as far as I can tell, sort of thing there. Which, I mean, Wong ends up doing a pretty good job of doing standard EDC stuff and some very purpose-built stuff. And he does have some experimental things, but they do seem to be kind of few and far between. What I do like about the finger choil, last thing I'll point out there, though, is that the thumb stud is nowhere near in the way of the blade path. So, you know, they at least got that out of the way. Nice, super smooth action. All sorts of fidgety, just like you'd want a button lock with a fairly large, robust button to be. So, there we go. I don't really have a whole lot else that I would like to cover with this guy outside of some blade size comparisons. So how about if we go ahead and do that? Oh, let's see. What do I want to start with? Sure. Why not? We'll go with Spyderco. We got the PM2 right over there. And there's the Endura 4. This thing is probably right around Indela size, as we can see from that. But I don't own an Indela, so I'm not going to be able to give you an accurate little comparison there. For Benchmade, we got, of course, the Griptilian there, and my 940, which very slim, but still very similar as far as proportions for both. It's a lot closer to, the handle thickness and all that sort of stuff from the Griptilian here. Let's see. There's. I suppose I can pull out the bug out. Yeah, it's small, but a lot of people do tend to carry that. So there's the rat number one. Here's the Civivi Elementum. I don't really think I have any other kind of knives that would be super useful for comparison. Sure, since I have it out. And there's the Elementum button lock variant. Obviously, you can tell that there is a difference in size between the button lock and the standard Elementum. In case you weren't familiar, but yeah, there you go. So there we go. There's the standard review I got going on for it. This thing is quite comfortable in the hand for something that you really need a lot of a hand filling sort of stuff for. It does a really good job of applying pressure to the blade. A lot of power into all of those cuts. Probably why the whole amount of the blade is belly. You don't really have any kind of straight portions there. It is a little bit difficult to get to the tip if you're trying to do utility cuts or anything like that. But hey, that's going to happen with any straight back kind of knife. But okay, that's basically everything that I wanted to cover there. So as always, we're going to go ahead and take a closer look on the inside of this. But if you're not super into that, feel free to click off and get back to something that's a little bit more interesting to you for the day. For the rest of us, let's go, apparently, as the gamers say. Super easy to disassemble this guy. There we go. We got the standard bearing races. We got just the standard pen for the lock pen. Not quite as thick as some others, but I don't personally see any problems with that going on there. Nice robust spring going on there for the I guess oversized compared to a lot of smaller companies button lock sort of things going on there. We got standard. What the hell is that film? I don't know. There might have been some stuff left over. I think that this from the factory had a little bit of Loctite. That might have squished out around there, and then when I put it back together, that kind of got in there. Obviously, you saw earlier that whatever it was didn't really affect the action all that much. It was still nice and swingy and all that sort of stuff. And the last thing, this is one of the newer models, so the D-shape is on the show side, so you don't need to adjust where that D-shape pivot is when you're putting on the traditionally the lock side. Want to make sure you actually get the button and all of that sort of stuff situated correctly, like I did not. There we go. Get the stop pen out on this side. Makes that a heck of a lot easier to put back together if the blade's actually in the correct position for you. And a little lanyard pen. Of course, those are always going to get a little loose on you. Got to pay attention to that. And yeah, just nice milling going on in there. I've put some lubrication in there just to make sure that the button doesn't get a little funky over time or something like that. Haven't really had that happen, but certainly doesn't help, or certainly doesn't hurt to actually have that there. And I, of course, did something where the the button didn't fully meet up in there. There we go. That would help. something that you often have to do with button locks. Something that you also have to do fairly often with access locks is when you're putting them back together, actually disengage the lock to fully get that pivot to be seated in the correct position. And something that I forgot, but hey, at least we took care of that without a whole lot of drama or anything else going on there. Yeah, super nice and tight. Back together in a flash. No problems at all. So yeah, there we go. There's the TS152. Kind of strange. Like I've said probably a couple of times already, maybe not the absolute epitome of EDC, but for what it's actually built to do and applying a lot of that power to a cut, seems to be pretty fantastic. So there you go. That's everything that I got to say about it. So with that, I appreciate y'all for watching, and have yourself a wonderful rest of your day, yo.